Harishchandra. This cinematic masterpiece brings to life the extraordinary legend of King Harishchandra, the paragon of virtue who once reigned over Ayodhya. Known for his unwavering commitment to truth, he would sacrifice anything, even his own well-being, to honor his word. The movie opens with the grand spectacle of Princess Chandramathi's Swayamvara, a traditional ceremony where she selects her husband. As she gracefully moves through the line of potential suitors, her gaze finally settles on Harishchandra, the noble king of Ayodhya. With a deliberate pause, she positions herself before him, indicating her acceptance. A look of pure joy spreads across Harishchandra's face. His heart pounds in his chest as his gaze falls upon her neck. A glint of gold, a symbol of matrimony, catches his eye. A cold fury seizes him as he confronts her father, his voice a thunderous roar. How dare you present a wedded woman for this sacred ritual? The king, unperturbed, reveals a celestial secret. A divine prophecy, a mark of destiny, a sign visible only to her destined mate. The necklace, a testament to the heavens, unveils the truth, leaving Harishchandra stunned. Humbled by the revelation, Harishchandra bows his head in apology. His heart, once filled with anger, now overflows with awe and reverence. Harishchandra, a paragon of virtue, ascended the throne of Ayodhya. His reign was a golden era, marked by unwavering justice and compassion. He governed with a heart pure as gold, ensuring the prosperity and happiness of his subjects. His name became synonymous with truth and integrity, a beacon of hope for all. Under his wise and benevolent rule, Ayodhya flourished, a testament to the power of righteousness. In the celestial realm of Indralok, a lively debate unfolded. Sage Narada, ever the flatterer, extolled the grandeur of Indra's kingdom, proclaiming it the most magnificent realm in existence. However, sage Vashishtha, a man of profound wisdom, gently challenged this assertion. He declared that there existed a place on earth, a kingdom called Ayodhya, that surpassed even the heavenly abodes. Vishvamitra couldn't resist a playful jab. He suggested that Vashishtha's admiration for Ayodhya was merely a biased opinion, stemming from his close association with its righteous ruler, King Harishchandra. Vashishtha, undeterred, firmly defended Harishchandra's virtue. He insisted that no mortal had ever possessed such unwavering integrity. Vishvamitra, ever the skeptic, countered that even the noblest of souls could succumb to temptation or be compelled by circumstances to break their word. Vashishtha, confident in his disciple's character, made a bold proclamation. He wagered his eternal sagehood on Harishchandra's unwavering commitment to his vows. If Harishchandra were to falter, Vashishtha would renounce his divine status. Vishvamitra, intrigued by the high stakes, accepted the challenge. He too vowed to share half of his spiritual power with Harishchandra, should the king prove himself to be the paragon of virtue as Vashishtha claimed. Unbeknownst to the divine wager, Harishchandra lived a contented life with his beloved wife and son, Rohitashva. When the formidable sage Vishvamitra arrived at the palace, he was greeted with the utmost respect. Vishvamitra, seeking to test Harishchandra's virtue, requested a peculiar favor: 1,000 units of gold. Harishchandra, ever the righteous king, readily agreed. However, a crisis arose when his prime minister, Satyakirti, revealed that the royal treasury was depleted. Vishvamitra declared that he would leave if the gold was not forthcoming. Harishchandra, determined to uphold his word, requested a few hours to procure the necessary amount. A glimmer of hope arrived in the form of a message from the king of Alakapuri. He was sending a generous gift of gold for young Rohitashva's birthday. Harishchandra's spirits lifted, and he eagerly proposed that Vishvamitra accept the gold on his behalf. However, Vishvamitra, with a knowing smile, declined the offer, insisting on waiting for a more opportune moment. A sense of unease crept into Chandramathi's heart. She sensed a hidden agenda behind Vishvamitra's actions, a feeling that something was amiss. With a heavy heart, she watched as the enigmatic sage departed, leaving behind a cloud of uncertainty. A wave of terror swept through the kingdom as wild animals, once confined to the forests, began to encroach upon the villages. Fear gripped the hearts of the farmers as these creatures, driven by an unknown force, attacked livestock and crops. The distressed subjects sought refuge in the king's court, pleading for protection. Harishchandra, ever the compassionate ruler, assured his people that he would take the necessary steps to restore peace and security. His heart ached for his suffering subjects, and he vowed to find a solution, no matter the cost. Harishchandra, accompanied by a loyal band of soldiers, ventured into the afflicted regions. They tirelessly worked to protect the villagers and their livelihoods. Exhausted from their relentless efforts, the king and his faithful prime minister, Satyakirti, sought respite in the shade of an ancient hut, nestled deep within the forest. As the weary king and his prime minister rested, sage Vishvamitra appeared, his eyes gleaming with a mischievous intent. With a wave of his hand, he conjured two ethereal maidens, their beauty captivating the senses. The maidens, enchanting Harishchandra with their melodious songs and graceful dances, introduced themselves as Vishvamitra's adopted daughters. They expressed their desire not for material rewards, but for his love and affection. Harishchandra, a man of unwavering virtue, politely declined their advances, reminding them of his unwavering loyalty to his wife, Chandramathi. The maidens, undeterred, persisted, citing the examples of kings who had multiple wives. However, Harishchandra remained steadfast, declaring himself a man of one woman. Satyakirti, ever vigilant, intervened, rebuking the maidens and driving them away. As they retreated, they issued a chilling threat, warning that their benefactor, sage Vishvamitra, would not tolerate such disrespect. Moments later, sage Vishvamitra arrived, his anger palpable. He confronted Harishchandra, accusing him of spurning his adopted daughters. But Harishchandra remained resolute, reiterating his unwavering commitment to his principles. Driven by his determination, Harishchandra declared that he would relinquish all his possessions, even his kingdom, to uphold his virtuous path. Seizing the opportunity to test Harishchandra's resolve, Vishvamitra proposed a deal. If Harishchandra was truly committed to his principles, he should surrender everything he possessed to the sage. Harishchandra, a man of his word, readily agreed. Upon returning to the palace, Chandramathi, though heartbroken, understood the gravity of her husband's vow. She, too, agreed that Harishchandra must honor his commitment, even if it meant sacrificing their kingdom and their comfortable life. Harishchandra surrenders his kingdom, his power, and all his worldly possessions to Vishvamitra. As they prepared to leave the palace, Vishvamitra demanded that they divest themselves of their royal attire as well. Harishchandra and his family, stripped of their royal identity, was about to emerge from the palace as ordinary people, ready to face the challenges of an uncertain future. As Harishchandra and his family were about to depart, Vishvamitra called out to them. He reminded Harishchandra of the 1,000 units of gold he had promised. Harishchandra, ever truthful, explained that the gold was safely kept in the royal treasury. However, Vishvamitra pointed out that the treasury was part of the kingdom, which Harishchandra had already relinquished. Therefore, the gold, too, belonged to him. Harishchandra, stripped of all his possessions, confessed that he had nothing left to offer. Vishvamitra, mocking his predicament, questioned his reputation as a man of his word. Harishchandra, undeterred, pleaded for a grace period of 90 days to arrange the gold. Reluctantly, Vishvamitra granted him a mere 48 days, appointing his disciple Shukra to oversee Harishchandra and ensure the timely payment. With heavy hearts, Harishchandra and his family, now reduced to beggars, left the palace, embarking on a journey of trials and tribulations. Shukra, a man devoid of empathy, subjected Harishchandra and his family to constant torment. He demanded that Harishchandra carry him across a river. As they traversed a dense forest, Shukra demanded food, forcing Harishchandra to leave Chandramathi and Rohitasva in his care. Left alone with the cruel person, Chandramathi and Rohitasva endured his relentless insults and taunts. Deeply hurt and humiliated, Chandramathi turned to the divine for solace. In a moment of desperation, she prayed fervently, seeking relief from the torment. Miraculously, the barren forest transformed, laden with ripe fruits. Shukra, oblivious to the divine intervention, greedily devoured the fruits. Another night, as they slept, a raging forest fire engulfed their camp. With no escape, they were trapped in a fiery inferno. Desperate, Chandramathi prayed to the divine for salvation. Miraculously, the flames were extinguished, leaving them unharmed. Their journey led them to the city of Kashi, a foreign land. Shukra's torment continued, his relentless demands for gold growing more insistent. Seeing her husband's suffering, Chandramathi proposed a desperate plan. She suggested selling herself into slavery, believing that the money earned from her sale could be used to repay Vishvamitra. Harishchandra, horrified by the idea, refused to consider it. He insisted on selling himself instead. Chandramathi argued that if he sells her, he will be able to free her later. However, if he were to sell himself, she would be powerless to help him escape his bondage. Shukra, indifferent to their plight, scoffed at their desperate measures. He cynically remarked that, at worst, Harishchandra would fail to keep his word. Eventually, a buyer emerged, purchasing Chandramathi and Rohitasva for 1,000 units of gold. Harishchandra, heartbroken, bid farewell to his beloved wife and child, promising to reunite with them once virtue triumphed over adversity. Satyakirti, the loyal prime minister, searched far and wide for his king. When he finally found Harishchandra, he was deeply saddened by his plight. As they conversed, Shukra unexpectedly returned. Harishchandra, surprised to see him, inquired, "Haven't you left yet?" Shukra demanded the remaining balance of gold. Harishchandra, bewildered, reminded him that he had already given him the 1,000 units of gold. Shukra tells that 100 units of gold is his remuneration for accompanying Harishchandra on his journey, so an additional 100 units of gold is yet to be paid by Harishchandra. Stripped of all his possessions, Harishchandra was at his wits' end. Satyakirti, ever loyal, offered to sell himself to repay the debt. However, Harishchandra, guided by his unwavering principles, refused to let his friend sacrifice himself. Instead, he declared that he would sell himself into slavery to fulfill his obligation. For a mere 100 units of gold, Harishchandra sold himself into slavery to Veerabahu, a man considered socially inferior. Harishchandra, once a king, now toiled as a servant, enduring the hardships of his new life. One day, as he carried a pot of toddy, a traditional alcoholic drink, Vishvamitra, the architect of his misfortune, appeared and breaks the pot, spilling its contents. Harishchandra, ever the epitome of humility, apologized to Veerabahu for the accidental spillage. However, Veerabahu, angered by the incident, punished Harishchandra by assigning him the most despised task, tending to the graveyard. As part of his duties, Harishchandra was required to cremate the deceased and collect specific items from each funeral: a cloth, a certain amount of money, and a measure of rice. The cloth and money were to be given to Veerabahu, while the rice was for Harishchandra's sustenance. Time relentlessly marched on, leaving its mark on Harishchandra, Chandramathi, and Rohitasva. Their once radiant appearances were now marred by hardship and suffering. Harishchandra, reduced to a mere shadow of his former self, tirelessly performed his grim duties. Satyakirti revisited Harishchandra, shocked to witness the king's transformation. The sight of his friend, once a mighty ruler, now reduced to a graveyard attendant, filled him with sorrow and indignation. A cruel twist of fate struck the family as Rohitasva, the young prince, was sent into the forest. There, he was bitten by a venomous snake, succumbing to its deadly venom. The news of his untimely demise shattered Chandramathi's heart. Upon hearing the tragic news, she fainted, her spirit broken. When she regained consciousness, she pleaded with her master to allow her to perform the final rites for her beloved son. Reluctantly, he granted her permission, but only under strict conditions. She was allowed a limited time to fulfill her duty, with the mandate to return before sunrise. Driven by a mother's love, Chandramathi, under the cloak of darkness, ventured into the forest to retrieve her son's lifeless body. Tears streamed down her face as she cradled his lifeless form. With a heavy heart, she carried his body to the cremation ground. Despite her grief and exhaustion, she gathered firewood, preparing to perform the final rites for her only son. She lit the pyre, her heart heavy with sorrow. As Chandramathi, grief-stricken, tended to the pyre, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Harishchandra, the once noble king, now a lowly graveyard attendant. Time and hardship had transformed them both, making them unrecognizable to each other. The night, cloaked in darkness, further obscured their identities, preventing them from recognizing their long-lost loved ones. Harishchandra, angered by the intrusion, confronted Chandramathi, demanding that she leave. He insisted on following the strict protocol, refusing to deviate from his duties, even for a moment. Chandramathi, overwhelmed by grief and desperation, explained her situation, revealing her identity as a slave. Her plea softened Harishchandra's heart. While he insisted on collecting the mandatory cloth and money for his master, he offered to perform the cremation rites for Rohitasva. Chandramathi, her heart heavy with sorrow, explained that she had nothing left to offer. Her son, her only source of solace, was gone. Harishchandra, unable to comprehend her despair, became enraged. He noticed the necklace around her neck. He accused her of greed, claiming that she was unwilling to part with her possessions, even in the face of her son's death. Chandramathi's heart skipped a beat as she recognized the man before her. Only Harishchandra could have seen the divine necklace around her neck. Harishchandra, too, recognized her, his heart filled with a mix of joy and sorrow. The realization that their beloved son was gone shattered them both. Despite their reunion and son's death, Harishchandra, ever the man of principle, insisted that Chandramathi ask her master and obtain the cloth and money for the cremation. With a heavy heart, she left to fulfill his request. As fate would have it, another tragedy unfolded in the kingdom of Kashi. The young prince, the heir to the throne, had been kidnapped, sending the kingdom into a state of panic. Soldiers scoured the land, desperate to find the missing prince. Meanwhile, Chandramathi, grief-stricken and disoriented, stumbled upon the lifeless body of a child. Mistaking it for her own son, Rohitasva, she cradled the body, tears streaming down her face. Unfortunately, 2 soldiers witnessed her actions. They arrested her, accusing her of the prince's murder. Brought before the court, Chandramathi, though innocent, was convicted based on circumstantial evidence. Despite her fervent pleas of innocence, her fate was sealed. She was sentenced to death, a victim of tragic circumstances and a cruel twist of destiny. Chandramathi was led to the cremation ground, a place of finality. Veerabahu, the cruel master, ordered Harishchandra to carry out the execution. As Harishchandra approached Chandramathi, his heart ached with sorrow. Harishchandra, unable to bear the thought of harming his beloved wife, pleaded with Veerabahu to spare him. He begged his master to reconsider, but Veerabahu remained adamant. He reminded Harishchandra of the solemn vow he had made to obey his every command, no matter how difficult. Harishchandra, his heart heavy with sorrow, accepted the sword, preparing to carry out the dreadful task. As he raised the weapon, tears streamed down his face. Just as he was about to strike, a voice echoed through the air, Harishchandra. It was Vishvamitra, the sage who had orchestrated the trials. He reprimanded Harishchandra for contemplating such a heinous act, reminding him of his unwavering commitment to Dharma. Vishvamitra, realizing the depths of Harishchandra's suffering, offered to return the kingdom, palace, and wealth that he had taken from him. He pleaded with Harishchandra to spare Chandramathi's life. Harishchandra, driven by his unwavering commitment to his word, refused to be swayed by Vishvamitra's offer. He declared that his promise to Veerabahu held greater significance than any earthly possession or power. With a heavy heart, he raised the sword, ready to fulfill his duty. Vishvamitra, witnessing Harishchandra's unwavering integrity, was deeply impressed. He realized that he had underestimated the king's character. With a profound sense of respect, Vishvamitra declared, "Sage Vashishtha, I admit defeat." Sage Vashishtha, sensing the impending tragedy, appeared before Harishchandra. As the guru of the righteous king, he pleaded with Harishchandra to reconsider his actions. However, Harishchandra, driven by his unwavering commitment to his word, remained resolute. He refused to compromise his integrity, even if it meant the life of his beloved wife. Harishchandra raised the sword, ready to strike. The blade descended fast, through the air. As the sword descended, a miraculous event unfolded. Instead of striking Chandramathi, the sword transformed into a garland, adorning her neck. A divine light illuminated the cremation ground, and Lord Shiva and Parvati appeared before them. The divine beings revealed the truth. The seemingly ordinary individuals who had tested Harishchandra's virtue were, in reality, celestial beings. Veerabahu was Lord Yama, the god of death, Shukra was Shukrakarya the celestial sage, and the buyer of Chandramathi was Lord Agni, the god of fire. His son, Rohitasva, miraculously awoke, unharmed. The gods showered their blessings upon Harishchandra, acknowledging his unwavering commitment to truth and righteousness. Even after regaining his kingdom and family, Harishchandra, deeply humbled by his trials, chose a path of spiritual enlightenment. With half of Vishvamitra's divine power bestowed upon him, he embarked on a rigorous penance, seeking ultimate liberation. His son, Rohitasva, was crowned the rightful king of Ayodhya. The story of Harishchandra, a tale of unwavering virtue and divine intervention, continues to inspire generations.